What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about SoFi, I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with data points, we do have a shorter week. So July the 4th, the market's closed because of Independence Day. So happy Independence Day to all the Americans out there. But aside from that, starting off on Monday, you have a couple of Fed speakers. Tuesday, you have yours truly, Powell. So that should make for a very interesting time because the rest of the week is going to be very kind of touchy and hitting home to what Powell recently mentioned. So Tuesday you have manufacturing and also JOLT numbers, Wednesday ADP employment, and then on Thursday non-farm payroll and unemployment. So reason why it might hit home to what Powell mentioned is he said that he's going to be really watching the labor data rather than the inflationary data to justify rate cuts. So with this week, we have a lot of potential opportunity for, let's say, earlier cuts. So the market might be kind of pricing that in if, again, everything goes kind of according to plan. Flip side, as I mentioned on my Friday video, SoFi and pretty much 90% of all the stocks are rather overbought. So if you do see, let's say, one of these data points not really coming in line with expectations, you could see some consolidation across the board, as typically that does happen with stocks being overdone. So that's something just to keep in mind. Aside from that though, tariffs. So had a little bit of falling out between Canada and States on Friday, and that's because Canada wants to impose a digital tax on the States, their American tech. But aside from that though, this week should be a very kind of hot topic type of week for tariffs. So it is assumed that a lot of them are going to be coming in before July the 4th. So again, depending on the data, how things kind of play out, we could see a move higher because of that. The market didn't really care all that much about the whole China and the States. We had some clarity on that on last Thursday, but still it didn't really bump up the market as much as I would have anticipated. So it's going to be the EU that's going to be a big deal for, let's say, tariffs related type of stuff, and maybe some resolution between Canada and the States. That could be some good catalyst for the broader market. But one thing also did come out on Friday that has people over the weekend jumping up and down. I'm not really that big of a fan of her, but Cathie Wood did buy just shy of 2 million shares of SoFi on Friday. So again, a lot of people see this as extremely optimistic. For those individuals that actually do know Cathie Wood, she I don't know, very bad timing on majority of her plays. She gets a lot of praise for the one or two that are pretty good hits. So her buying, I don't think is that optimistic, but nonetheless though, you will be seeing a increase in institutional transactions over the next couple of trading days as Q2 does conclude. So you will be seeing a lot of rebalancing. So that could be also her doing that as well on a side note, but still her selling SoFi pretty much at the lows, like that seems to be her thing. So pretty much, I think indirectly she might be the kind of inverse Kramer type of scenario, just not to the same magnitude, of course. But let me know your general thoughts. Do you think I'm too rough on her or just right enough? What's your kind of thoughts on that? Aside from all of that, going into this upcoming week, 13.58% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 147.35 million shares overall are being shorted. So when it comes down to just historically long weekends, shorts do typically like to return. So you might see abnormally shorts returning some shares on Thursday because that way they don't have to pay one unnecessary day that they don't have to. So that could be coming out on Thursday, but nonetheless though, anticipate them to be fairly active for this whole week based on a lot of the data points that I mentioned and also tariffs. So just keep that in mind. But aside from that, one thing that should, in theory, really push SoFi higher is all of these in the money options. So you did have 38,000 at that 16, 20,000 at that 1650, 24,000 at that 17, 24,000 at 1550, 21,000 at 15. Huge. Like Friday, how it closed and how all that played out was the best case scenario. So in general, you should see a very nice bump up as market makers will have to cover all of these options. And from what I can see, both on the secondary market and also the dark pool, there was some big transactions that could be market makers already covering, such as this one right here, 558,000, works out to be $9.3 million worth. That was pretty much it on the dark pool. Secondary market, you did have some abnormal transactions. So this one was 865,000, 305, 100,000, but still nowhere near that needs to be covered for this. So potentially this upcoming week, you could see a very nice push higher first thing on Monday. So roughly about 9 million shares, I think, in excess of everything needs to be covered. Aside from all that though, from the bulls, there is a consensus for it to be roughly around that $18 range to potentially even $18.50 for this week. And then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub 16. So definitely a little bit more upside is still anticipated, with it closing at 17.18, trading between this R3 and this R2. 17.30 is going to be that kind of key resistance level. If it is able to break above that, then 18.05 is going to be the next level. And that's kind of what the bulls are anticipating. Flip side, 17.01 and then 16.84 is going to be kind of the support levels that you need to watch for. Aside from all of that fun stuff though, don't anticipate any new analyst ratings. Usually the next rush of analyst ratings will come roughly 1 week to a week and a half prior to their earnings, which right now has been unannounced. But nonetheless, that's the crazy thing about SoFi. Always gets dumb analyst ratings right before their earnings. So don't anticipate anything like that for this week. But as I already mentioned, SoFi and the majority of the market is rather overbought. So potentially with some negative, whether it be macro or even specific to SoFi, you could see some volatility. So just refer back to kind of the support levels that I did previously mention. But generally speaking, SoFi does like to be kind of within that happy range of $13 to $17. Not saying that it can't go higher than that, but I feel like it needs a good catalyst. So whether the market starts to really think that a July cut is feasible, or potentially some good tariff news, that would be enough to really push SoFi to a new 52-week high. So let me know your general thoughts. Do you think we're going to be seeing a new 52-week high for SoFi this week? Do you think that we're going to be seeing a pullback? Because right now the 52-week high is at 1842. So based on at least the options, there is an understanding that could actually hit. So what's your viewpoint on SoFi? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. In my opinion, for this week, I do feel that we will actually be closing between, looking at the classic, this R3 and this R2. So I don't think we might actually have a spike to hit a new 52-week low, but I feel like given the circumstances, it might consolidate and close between that 18.05 and 17.30. That's just my opinion. Still, week over week would be green, but I don't see, from what a lot of people are believing to happen, like $20, $24. I don't see that really happening this week. Let me know your general thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon and give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.